Hello guys, welcome to another episode of the Solo Game Developer Podcast. My name is Kai Shravely from the Naked Devs, and I'm here with Matt Dabrowski, maker of the overwhelmingly positive game Streets of Rogue. How you going, Matt?
Thank you. I suppose that is one way to label it, sure.
What I want to do before we jump into asking some questions about you and your life, I always like to start off with what got you started in game development? What put you on this journey?
Sure, yeah. I kind of wanted to be a game developer for most of my life. Ever since I played a video game when I was about 7 years old, and I got some game making software when I was 8. It was I could make very simple stuff. I didn't do a whole ton with it, but I always had this idea in my head that I wanted to work on games for a living. That was something that never really changed throughout my early life. And when I was a teenager, I started working on other actual projects that I could put onto the internet. There was a program called ZZT, where you could basically make games within this other game. It was the first ever game from Epic Games that had ever come out, and I mean the creator of that is now a billionaire. He's Tim Sweeney. But it was like a very early program where you could make games and share them on the internet, and there was a whole community of people based around that, and that was where some of my earliest stuff that I put on the internet was. And then throughout high school and college, I worked on a couple of other big game projects, one of which was a graphic adventure in the style of the old LucasArts games, and the other one was a sort of cinematic platformer in the vein of Out of This World or Heart of Darkness or Flashback. And so those are called Aftershock was the first one, and the second one was Between Heaven and Hell.
Right.
So that was my sort of roots in game development right there.
Yeah. So when you went to college, did you say?
Yeah, I did.
What did you study?
I studied computer science at USC. USC is actually now they have a game development program. I think one of the top in the country, but that was just sort of starting up when I was there. So I was thinking of sort of doing a minor in that, but then I ended up just graduating and just kind of going off into the workforce. That was a solid, kind of gave me solid programming base right there, I guess.
So you said that you went into the workforce. So at what point did you go from working full-time or working part-time, I guess, into being a full-time game developer? When was that shift?
Well, I mean, see, initially when I started working, I actually worked in the games industry. I worked at Blizzard for a little bit as a tester. And then I worked at a company called Tilted Mill, who had done a bunch of simulation games like Caesar 4, and we worked on SimCity Societies. Then I had difficulty getting jobs in the industry, and just had to kind of get something. So I just started working other jobs that paid more, but weren't in games, and I just really had no interest in what I was doing for the most part. And I was just sort of bumming around, I guess, for a while. And then at some point I got transferred to our company got kind of taken. This company I was working at got merged into this other bigger company, and I had nothing to do for about 3 months. And so at that point, this was early 2013, late 2012, and I was I kind of want to use this as an opportunity to start making games again, because I haven't done this in a while, and I can't keep working these jobs that I've been doing. I just had at that point I just started kind of working on stuff on my own again and in my free time. And a couple of years later, I ended up getting laid off from this job. Basically because they had nothing for me to do, and I was kind of just working on game development. I won't say I was working on Streets of Rogue, but I was working on game development related stuff during job, because there was
there's no work.
But it gave me some time to kind of brush up on my skills. So this was in early 2015 that I at that point I had sort of been working on Streets of Rogue for a little bit, at that point, and it was at a point where I felt like it could really be something. So I just decided to, I'd saved up a bit of money at that point and just decided to continue work on that full time.
Yeah.
And
then
so that was so yeah, I haven't worked in an office in about 5 years at this point.
That's awesome. When you what kind of got you the inspiration to build Streets of Rogue?
It was a bunch of different games I played when I was a kid. Most there was Deus Ex is sort of the big one there.
Yeah.
I really wanted to do something that gave people a lot of choice in how they approached these situations, and also like the early Fallout games where you're just kind of like running around towns doing quests and stuff. That was another big one. The early Grand Theft Auto games, which were top-down 2D perspective, where you could cause a bunch of chaos everywhere. And also this game called Messiah, which is sort of obscure nowadays, but it was a game from Shiny Entertainment where you played as this little angel character, and you could you're running around this sort of like crappy rundown city, and you're jumping into people's bodies and taking them over. So you could like jump into a cop and get other cops to kind of help you out, or you could jump into a scientist's body and use a control panel that you wouldn't normally be able to use because you're a scientist now. And I thought it was a really cool concept. If you play like the Streets of Rogue, and you play as the shapeshifter character, that's like directly based on the character in Messiah, just a little crazy looking thing that jumps into people's bodies.
That's awesome. When you so you finished working, you started building this game, or you started working more full time on your game, and at what point did you realize that you had a critical following? Did it happen? Did you build up an audience to that point, or did you like do just a really good launch and it went massive? Like, how did you get your following?
It was kind of a gradual build up. I mean, the first first couple of years of development, I was just completely working in a bubble. And then in late 2015, I wasn't really super confident about releasing an early versions of the game. So in late 2015, I released the first build, and I had a blog on tigsource.com. If you know about, there's a forum. The tigsource.com forums is a place where a lot of game developers have like their little blogs. Yeah. So I started one there. I guess people are still using this. But yeah, I started one up, and that was really the only place that I posted about it at first. And posted early alpha builds there. And I think I might have posted a few other places over time, but I was still trying to keep it a little bit like I wasn't really ready to do even like a real soft launch kind of thing just yet. But there were still people who did play it and send me feedback through the user feedback form. And then I guess things sort of continued along, and I had around the same kind, like there wasn't really a whole lot of activity. And things really started to heat up, I guess, when so I had been at GDC 2016, and I was in talks with some publishers, and I brought TinyBuild on as my publisher, and we went to PAX 2016 in I think September, or was it late? It might have been late August, and that point they actually did like a sort of formal announcement about the game, and I put the current alpha version on itch.io and gamejolt.com, and immediately it started getting some traction. Like there was a lot more people sending feedback and a lot of people downloading the game at that point, and so it started to really kind of gain a following there. And so that was in August, and then we launched into early access in March of the next year. And so at that point, a lot of people knew about the game. It was on a bunch of people. We had a mailing list of people who wanted to know more about the game or know when the game was coming out. initially I actually put a mailing list form like directly into the game's title screen, actually into the alpha versions, so
Do you feel
people
like
could just put in their email address, yeah, and it would just so, and I always promise, like, I'll only send out one email. I'll send an email out when the game launches. So that's what I did. And then Tiny Build had their own mailing list, and you know, of course, there's Steam wish lists and stuff like that. Yeah, we were kind of well positioned at that point. So like immediately, you know, there were people who had been waiting for the game to come to Steam for a while. So and then when the game launched actually into early access, Tiny Build was able to do something which was really cool, which was it was the first game ever to launch into early access with a free weekend. So it was like Steam was promoting the game, and you could download it for free over that weekend, and then it just would stop working after the weekend was over. You couldn't use it in Steam anymore. You just need to buy it. So yeah, that helped us get some really good traction there. And at this point, the game was also in very good shape for like an early access game, because you know it had been in alpha testing for months and months with the free version. So that launch went really well, and you know immediately the game had really good reviews. So things just kind of continued from there, and that was
snowballed from there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's like it's a pretty epic journey that you went on to get to where you are now. Are you planning on working on a different game at the moment, or is Streets of Rogue like still your main focus?
Well, I'm starting to work on a sequel right now, which is something I've talked about a little bit in my posts on Steam, because basically I've done so much work on this game, and I feel like there's ways to expand it, but I don't want to like the structure of the current game is such that I can't, like, I want to do like an open world kind of thing, and I can't just like attach that to the original game, because it would just change the entire game. It'd be like a totally different game.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to just, I mean, I could just keep adding content to Streets of Rogue, like, you know, they did with Binding of Isaac for years and years and years. But like personally, like I don't really want to do that much. It's sort of diminishing returns for me. It's not that exciting. And I mean, I just want to do something with sort of a different structure. And so I'm going to be keeping people posted. I'm going to continue like doing stuff for the original game, because the sequel is going to be built off the original's code base. So like any fixes that I make to artificial intelligence and stuff like that, I imagine a bunch of that would trickle down to the original game, and probably like some new items and stuff and whatnot. But yeah, so that's what I'm kind of knee deep in right now.
You said 5 years you've been out of an office, working as a solo developer. What's the hardest thing that you've found as a solo developer? Like what has been the hardest thing for you during this time?
Let's see. Well, I suppose that, I mean, the first couple of years, just sort of, not knowing, just sort of bleeding money and not knowing where, if I'm ever going to actually make money from this, or if the game is actually going to be a success, or, maybe I'll go into early access and the game won't do well, and then I'll have to continue working on the game with this idea in my head that, oh, maybe this, maybe I'm just doing this all for nothing. I mean, and there's that whole constant worry. I was always pretty confident about the game, but being a realist, I mean, there was a significant possibility of something like that happening. But I guess just day to day, I don't know. Like, I don't really have like a major problem with motivation. I guess because there's always something to work on, and I don't know. It's just a personal thing that's ever been. I find that, like, if I'm actually interested in the thing that I'm working on, I'll be motivated, and if not, I'm really not motivated.
Your passion shows your success. So like, like
the biggest the original question was big problems you had.
What is like the hardest thing that you found?
Hardest thing, right?
Yeah.
I think partially it's that. Actually, I have an answer for you. It's that it's hard to stop working. A lot of the time, I've become like something of a workaholic, because it's like I'm the only one working on this game, and if I don't fix a bug, nobody's going to fix it. If I don't put in a new feature, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. There's heaps of times where I'm sitting there thinking I could play a game or I could fix this thing in my game. And I end up going, oh, look, I'll just spend like 10 minutes fixing a bug or something. And then like 3 hours have gone by and I'm still sitting there like just trying to get this thing to work. We talked a lot about how you are, how'd your life go, and how did you get to where you are and what you're doing. Now that you're out there and your game's online, you will get some negative comments. How do you deal with the negativity? How do you handle those people that are attacking your game or you personally?
Yeah, I mean, it's never fun. I mean, you never. I mean, I like to think I have a pretty decently thick skin, but it still sucks to hear negative stuff. And I do try to respond to certain things if someone gives like constructive criticism or if they have like a legitimate technical problem. I'll respond to reviews. But otherwise, it's just best just ignore it.
Yeah.
I mean, unless like I said, if it's constructive, then maybe there's something there. Yeah.
All right, Matt. So we're going to go into this thing called the debug round. It's a series of short, very random questions that I'll ask you,
Sure.
But totally relevant and important, kind of. All right, you ready?
Okay.
Okay, 11 questions. We're starting with number 1. Is cereal soup?
No.
Okay.
More of an answer like
yeah,
what?
like why? Like why is cereal not soup?
Because I mean, if I had to answer, I mean, just off the top of my head, I mean, there is cold soup like gazpacho, so that's not it, obviously. But it's because you have the one constant in cereal is generally milk, right? Milk in cereal, yeah?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the liquid is always the same. It's milk. When you put in the milk, it's your cereal. So
that's true. That's a good point. Okay, I'll take it. All right, question number 2. What secret conspiracy would you like to start?
Oh man, this is a tricky one, and I'm so sick of conspiracy. Yes, everything. I don't even want to put anything out there. Honestly, it's just like I don't know our current climate on the Twitter and whatnot. I can't even think about this. I'm sorry.
No, you're right. That's still a great answer. Just there's too much out there. Let's kill it all. All right. Yeah. All right. Number 3. What's the most ridiculous fact you know?
I know a lot about like movie box office and stuff. Like I could name like for a while, like I could tell you how much money any movie had made like in the past like 20 years.
That is a crazy fact. All right. Can I test you?
Sure, yeah.
All right, Iron Man 1, first Iron Man.
Iron Man 1, I believe it was. I mean, I can give you the about, but not the exactly the about.
That's fine.
I think it was about 330 million.
Okay, I'm gonna check that
out. Might have been 315.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, 318 million. That's
okay. That is close-ish. All right, it's
that's
within
impressive.
10%.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Question number 4. In 40 years, what will people be nostalgic for?
I think people will be nostalgic for any sort of physical media because that's all going to be gone. You're not going to have discs. You're not going to have stores. There'll be like vintage shops that'll have, like there's vintage shops now, and it'll have things like, Blu-ray players and whatnot, but you just won't be buying stuff anymore.
Yeah. All right, question number 5. If animals could talk, which would be the rudest?
Probably the dolphin. From what I've heard, they're already kind of jerks.
In one sentence, how would you sum up the internet?
And a cure for boredom. I don't know. I mean, there's really no reason anyone should be bored nowadays. I don't think.
Yeah. Well, at your fingertips, you have all the entertainment in the world. Like, that's true.
A cure for boredom. Sure.
I like that. All right. Question number 7. How many chickens would it take to kill an elephant?
Chickens is difficult because I mean, the elephant can't really climb the thing. He can just immediately stomp most of them. I mean, it doesn't. they'd have to be vertical. They'd have to be going vertically. They'd have to be just like a room full of chickens, like on top of one another. And he's just like, I don't know. He'd probably just end up suffocating. He's just dropping in a vat of chickens. It's probably the only way it's going to happen.
That is so grim. I love that. So how many do you reckon would fill up a room? Like,
I mean, it'd have to, like I said, it has to be a vat big enough for an elephant. Geez, I mean, hundreds of chickens, maybe 1,000. Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's very grim.
I like it. All right, question number 8. What's something people seem to misunderstand about you?
I mean, maybe some people just that I have like unlimited time and energy to act on all of the things that they want to put in the game, or that I have like that I'm a much bigger corporation or have many more people working on this thing, or you know, because some of the requests I get are just kind of ridiculous. So maybe that, I guess. I'll go with that.
That's fair. That's a big thing as well. I found there's a lot of people, especially people who've never built a game before, they immediately just assume that you can add in things just at a whim. And I hear this a lot, like especially whenever I was taking one of my games from a while back to a conference, people are like, you know, it'd be really cool, just add in everything here. That would be awesome. And I'm like, that would be. Yeah, I was like, that would be. But that would take me probably a year to get through that list. Like,
Oh yeah, and it's not just the adding things; it's the way that things interact with other things. It's like, yeah, I could put in this new feature that you want, but also it would break like 50 things, and I'd have to be fixing bugs for months. So
yeah, they're like,
people don't often take into account.
Like, can you add in flying and dropping like nuclear bombs? And you're like, but then how will people shoot up and like?
Yeah.
No, that's true.
Verticality, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Question number 9. What's something you're curious about right now?
Well, this is kind of depressing, but I kind of am curious about where America is going to be in the next couple of years. We got problems over here right now.
Yeah.
We got major problems.
Let's jump on to question number 10. So you got 2 more last questions. Question number 10 is, what's something you failed at? It could be recently, it could be something substantial, just something you failed at.
Well, I mean, this is something that was kind of turned into a success, but I basically failed at, being in the video games industry in the way that I had sort of anticipated being in the video games industry. Like my plan, for years and years was just, to get jobs and work on like major games and, work my way up and, work on the next, enormous title like
Blizzard, Assassin's Creed, Bioshock,
yeah, and it just didn't end up happening, and I just sucked at job interviews or something, and got laid off one too many times. It just so I mean, the thing just didn't like pan out the way that I expected, and there was like a big period of time where I just didn't know like if I was ever going to be able to kind of fulfill that goal in my life, because that was really my only major like goal in life, to be working in games. And so that kind of sucked. All
right, so Hugh sent me something. Hugh Millward, the developer of Warsim. This is what we call a segment called Pay It Forward. And what it is I'll get someone to nominate a person to be on the podcast and ask them one question. And Hugh nominated you, and that's why we started this process. But he wanted to know, what was the biggest surprise during the development / release of Streets of Rogue?
There was a lot. There was a lot fewer surprises than you might think, because things kind of, I don't know, things kind of panned out as I was like, like the game, the way the game is like performed over the years, it's just like there's never been any like major point where it's like like PewDiePie played the game and just like had this giant bump in like everyone's talking about it or anything like that. It's kind of weird to say, but like I made this maybe just, it's may have just been overconfidence, but like I kind of expected the game to do well, and I probably like shouldn't have expected to do it as well. But I had, I don't know, like like even like the launch of the game, the initial launch wasn't like a major surprise, because I was like, okay, in my head, like, okay, we've lined up everything to, we have these advantages. I have Tiny Build as my publisher for launching this free weekend. We have the existing fan base and stuff. So naturally, this should do well. And so, like, it did, and it was like, oh, well, that's not a major surprise. Like there was. Same with like the launch on console. Like, the Switch version did better than the other versions. There was a major surprise on launch day, which was that the Xbox version, there was a way to like brick the game when that launched. Like you could literally like make it so that your game did not work anymore. We kind of scrambled to get that one fixed. That was a crappy surprise, crappy surprise.
Yeah,
that ruined my launch day, and part of but fortunately we run that really quickly. People on Twitter were very
unhappy.
Let me know about that one.
Yeah. So. That's a bad surprise, but a big one. It's surprising for me that you stuff like that doesn't get picked up during your tests, right? Like you're running your tests on all your consoles.
Boy. It was like, I mean, like the console involvement was done like sort of externally, at least a lot of it. I mean, I worked with them, but it was how that one got in was it was just something that had been fixed at some point, but then ended up getting like merged back in at the last minute and just never got caught. And so that's how that happened. It was just an accident. Something got merged back in that shouldn't have, and fixed very quickly, like within a few days, thankfully.
Still, that's pretty sad. So sticking with the pay it forward segment, who would you nominate to come on the show, and what question would you ask them?
I'm not sure I'd nominate. I actually don't know that many people, to be honest. I just sort of worked on my own for most of the time. I haven't been to an event in years. I don't really know that many people in the industry. I mean, but I'm actually in like a sort of chat room on Discord with like some fairly well-known developers. I might be able to ask in there if anybody's interested in doing one of these interviews.
Okay, and then what question would you ask them? What's something you want to know from another developer?
I think I never really get asked much. That I always am kind of curious about people who've had like success with this. Was like, how did you kind of deal with that? Like,
that's a really good one.
Just sort of, I guess, what was there a change? Was there a change in your mindset? Did you just make you work harder? I know that when my game was, when it came out in early access and it did well, I started working a lot harder than I had previously, just because I was like, oh, I have to capitalize on this. I can't just like,
don't let them know
my world right now. So I just never really kind of was able to kind of internalize what was happening. I just sort of kept working through everything. And so I don't know. I just kind of really wonder what other people's like mindset was when positive things started happening. Did they feel elated? Did they feel disappointed that there's like a few people who dislike the game and that's all they can focus on?
That's awesome. I really like that. All right, I will ask whoever we get on. I'll ask them that question. All right, so I once owned a non-for-profit breast cancer awareness thing where I used to send stickers to people, and they were stickers of nipples. It stopped because I couldn't afford the postage to so many people. But what I can do, what I've started doing is, for the podcasters, I'm sending you guys a sticker of a nipple. But
awesome.
You get to pick. Do you want the right, middle, or left?
Let me see. Let's see. The closest to my skin tone would be the one that's on my left right now.
Your left, so this one?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, that's coming to you. So I will send it in the mail in the next couple of days, and you should probably see it in probably a week or two, depending on how they go with sending it.
Fantastic. I'll send you my address. I'll send you my address to the chat.
Awesome. All right, Matt, thank you so much for being on. It's been a pleasure talking to you and hearing about your journey. And um, it's been really fascinating seeing kind of how you got into this and what it meant to you, and the changes that it's happened since becoming a successful developer. So I really had a good chat. For anybody who's interested, check out Streets of Rogue on Steam. You can also jump onto your Twitter and follow the Twitter for anything, which is, what's your Twitter, Matt? At
It's madguy90, MADGUY90.
There we go. And you can get all your updates for that. It'll also be in all the descriptions, so I'll put everything in every description box. Do you have a Discord group or anything that people can follow?
Yeah, there's a Streets of Rogue Discord, and if you own the game, it's actually linked from the main menu of the game, so anybody can join that.
No, all right. And I'll put that into the settings as well, into the descriptions as well for everybody that wants to jump on. So thank you so much for being on.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me.
It's all right. Thank you.